there is a teaching known only to monks, passed not through books, but through the silence between breaths. It is said that a man only opens his soul when fate calls his name 3 times, once through a wound, once through a woman, once through a moment in time. Miss it and he remains a shell. Answer it and he becomes a force. Stay until the end, for the moments are already approaching. Dates that hold power, signs that speak, and a truth that will change how you see love forever. There is a hidden gate in every man's soul. It does not swing open with force, nor yield to reason. This gate, delicate, ancient, and divine, is called emotional vulnerability. To many it seems like weakness, a surrendering of control. But to those who walk the silent path of wisdom, vulnerability is not a loss. It is the passage through which spirit, love, truth quietly enter. Imagine a mountain untouched by rain. Its rocks are hard, unbending, unmoved, yet nothing can grow upon it. No flower dares take root in soil that does not soften. In the same way, a man who hides behind armor, too strong to bend, too proud to feel, becomes a barren peak, unreachable, alone. But when the first rains fall and the earth accepts the water not as defeat, as nourishment, life begins. And so it is with the heart. When a man allows himself to feel, not for attention, not for drama, for truth, he becomes fertile ground for devotion, clarity, and deep connection. Is a story of a Shaolin novice who came to his master and said, "I have mastered stillness. I have silenced my mind." The master, with a quiet smile, took the novice to the temple gardens. There, he pointed to a tree battered by wind. Its branches swayed wildly, its leaves scattered. The master asked, "Is this tree weak?" "No," replied the novice, "it is alive." "Exactly," said the master. Stillness is not found in resistance to the wind, but in surrendering to its rhythm without breaking. True stillness is not the absence of movement, but the presence of grace within it. Emotional vulnerability is that grace. It does not mean a man is led by his feelings, but that he is not afraid of them. It means he can sit in the storm of his own sorrow and not run. He can face the trembling truth of love and not mock it or hide behind silence. In daily life, we see it in the simplest things. A father kneeling beside his son, saying, "I don't have all the answers, but I'm here." A partner whispering, "I'm scared too," instead of pretending to be unshaken. A leader admitting, "I was wrong," not to gain approval, but to honor integrity. In nature, we see it in the lotus. It does not grow in clear waters, but in the mud. Yet it rises unstained. So too, a man who dares to be emotionally vulnerable rises not because he has no fear, but because he chose to grow through it. An old teaching says, "The heart that guards itself from pain also guards itself from light." The addiction a man feels when he encounters true emotional depth is not to the woman alone, but to the awakening she brings forth in him. She touches a place long hidden, a place he could not find through logic, success, or solitude. This is why emotional vulnerability becomes the bridge, not just to intimacy, but to spiritual expansion. In that moment of opening, something ancient stirs, not the child or the lover, but the soul itself. It remembers what it means to be human. It remembers that before it was a man, it was breath. And breath does not fight the wind, it flows with it. Now, there are those destined to carry light in this world, but not all are ready. Not all are willing. This is where the path of the chosen begins, not with power, but with isolation. There is a moment in the life of every awakened soul when the road forks. One path leads to comfort, applause, and familiarity. The other disappears into the mists. It is steep, unclear, and walked alone. The man who chooses this latter path is not chosen by destiny. He chooses destiny. He is not chosen because he is perfect. He is chosen because he answers when silence calls. The chosen one is not born. He is forged by heartbreak, by patience, by unglamorous trials. While others run to be seen, he trains in shadows. While the world screams for attention, he listens for whispers. There is a parable of a village surrounded by a dense forest. Every year, they held a race to reach the sacred tree said to grant vision. The fastest and loudest always raced ahead, cutting branches, shouting to one another, determined to win. But they never returned with anything but sweat. One year, a silent boy entered. He moved slowly, peeping often. He sat with the trees. He listened to the animals. He waited when unsure. Days later, he returned not only with vision, but with answers the elders had long forgotten. They asked him, "How did you find what we could not?" He replied, "I did not find it. I allowed it to find me." So it is with those who are truly chosen. They do not chase fate. They become quiet enough to hear it approaching. In the life of a man, the signs come through disappointment, through the collapse of plans, through the leaving of someone he believed would stay forever. And yet, in that breaking, a question forms, is there something more? Those who ignore it will go on, perhaps successful, perhaps admired. But something in their eyes will always carry absence. Those who answer it must die a little. The part of them attached to status, to control, comfort, must fall away. And in its place they become watchful. Not paranoid, watchful. They begin to feel the patterns of the moon, to recognize that between certain dates, the 9th to the 12th, for example, there is a restlessness in the air, that strange encounters happen, that memories rise uninvited. These are not coincidences, they are invitations. Between the 13th and 17th, the shadows return, doubt, old fears, unhealed fragments. It is here that the chosen one is tested. Will he return to the old, or trust the silence that brought him this far? And on the 22nd, the portal opens, not always with fireworks, sometimes with a conversation, a letter, a dream. But the shift is undeniable. Old world feels too small. A real life example of this can be found in the stories of many spiritual leaders, not just in temples, but in ordinary life. The quiet man who, after losing everything, begins walking every morning before dawn, seeking nothing. In that emptiness, something begins to speak, not in words, in presence. Or the artist who, after years of painting for praise, suddenly destroys her canvas and begins again, not for show but for truth. These moments of transformation are not created by chance. They are granted through readiness. As Lao Tzu once wrote, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When the soul is quiet, path will be revealed. To be chosen is not to be better. It is to be willing to listen when others talk, to wait when others rush, to feel when others numb, to fall when others hide. And so, emotional vulnerability and being chosen are not separate truths. They are the same key, forged in different flames. One opens the gate to intimacy, the other to destiny. Both require the same courage, the courage to live from within, even when the world remains outside. This path is not for everyone. But if you hear these words and feel your breath slow, if something ancient in you stirs, you may already be on the path. Walk gently. The winds will guide you, the signs will come. And when they do, bow, not in worship, but in recognition. For you were not made to follow blindly, you were made to remember. There is a force within each of us, quiet and often overlooked, that knows before the mind knows. It does not speak in sentences, nor argue with logic. It arrives as a feeling in the chest, a shiver down the spine, a sudden silence in the middle of noise. This force is intuition. In the ancient teachings, intuition was not seen as a mysterious gift granted to a few. It was regarded as the voice of the spirit, ever present, though often drowned by the clutter of thought. Just as the moon reflects the sun's light across still waters, intuition reflects truth across a still mind. A disciple once asked the master, "Why can I never hear the voice of wisdom you speak of?" The master handed him a bowl and said, "Go to the lake and fetch me water." When the disciple returned, the surface of the water in the bowl was rippling. "Can you see your reflection?" the master asked. "No, master. The water is disturbed." The master nodded. "Return again and wait until the water is calm." When the disciple returned with still water, he saw his own face reflected clearly. The master said, "So it is with your inner knowing. Until you quiet your thoughts, you cannot see what is already there. Intuition is not separate from reason. It is simply older. It carries the memory of all that is past, all that is becoming, and all that could be. It operates in symbols, in dreams, in sudden hesitations or mysterious yearnings. It often arrives when we are alone walking at dusk or just before falling asleep, when the mind releases its grip and the soul begins to whisper. There is a certain timing to this whisper. Not every moment is ripe for clarity. Just as not all soil is ready for seed, not all days are ready for revelation. Between the 9th and the 12th of each month, there is an energetic thinning, a period where the veil between inner and outer, between seen and unseen, grows delicate. During these days, one must pay attention to strange feelings, unexpected dreams, the eyes of strangers, or even the way light falls upon the floor. A man may not understand why he feels heavy during these days, or why he suddenly recalls something he thought long forgotten. But this is the soul testing the door. The intuition is knocking. Whether it opens depends on whether he listens, not with his ears, but with his stillness. In nature, we see this in the migration of birds. They do not read maps, yet they know when to rise and when to fly. They trust the wind and the pull of unseen forces. When storms approach, animals sense it before the sky changes. So too does the soul sense an approaching shift. Intuition is the internal barometer of fate. A man walking the path must train his sensitivity like a monk trains his balance. Not to become fragile, but to become attuned. For the man who ignores his intuition will always feel slightly lost, even in the presence of order. While the man who trusts it may often walk through the dark, but he will never wander. There is a lesser known saying from the Taoist tradition: the sage does not see further, he simply sees sooner. This is the essence of inner knowing. It does not promise comfort, but it protects you from drifting too far from your appointed course. And when emotional vulnerability opens the gate of feeling, intuition begins to speak more clearly. The heart, unburdened by pride, becomes an antenna for divine guidance. But once the voice is heard, what then? The answer lies in the next sacred principle, the rhythm of the universe itself. The ancients knew that all of life moves in cycles. Night follows day, winter follows summer, birth follows death. Nothing stays still, and yet everything returns. Just as the moon completes its circle every 29 days, our own lives spiral through seasons, each with its own lesson, its own energy, and its own test. A student once asked a temple elder, "Why do I keep facing the same lesson in different forms?" The elder replied, "Because you have not bowed to it yet. This bow is not defeat, it is surrender to the rhythm. The understanding that life will teach the same truth again and again until we stop resisting and begin receiving." Between the 13th and the 17th, the energy often shifts. Where the 9th to 12th reveal, the 13th brings what must be faced. Shadows may rise, old insecurities, doubts, fears masked as logic. These are not failures. They are echoes of unhealed moments returning for closure. Think of the tide pulls back before it surges forward. So too, life may feel as if it regresses only to gather force for deeper transformation. During these days, relationships may be tested. Silence may enter. The urge to return to old habits may tempt the spirit. This is the part of the cycle many fear. But it is also the part that prepares. In daily life, we see this in the rhythm of growth. Tree must shed its leaves to grow again. A snake must endure the discomfort of shedding its skin. And a man must pass through confusion before clarity becomes his companion. A woman once shared her story of personal awakening. After years of trying to be strong, holding her emotions like a shield, she finally collapsed in the arms of someone she trusted. There were no speeches, no solutions, just stillness. In that surrender, she felt both broken and born. Months later, her decisions became clearer. Her confidence was quieter, but deeper. She did not force the cycle. She flowed with it. Concept of universal cycles invites us to abandon our obsession with constant progress. It teaches us that transformation is not a straight path, but a spiral staircase. Sometimes we revisit the same pain, but from a higher place. The lesson may look familiar, but we are no longer the same. There is a passage from the teachings of Didi Jen, the Zen master, that says, "Do not think you will necessarily be aware of your own enlightenment." So it is with inner growth. Often, we don't recognize our own evolution until someone else sees it, or until we are placed in a storm we once drowned in, but now stand calmly within. When we understand the cycles, we become less reactive. We stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What part of the cycle am I in?" This question alone transforms suffering into insight. Returning to the journey of emotional vulnerability, these universal rhythms play a sacred role. A man may open once and feel shaken by the intensity. He may close again, but if he honors the cycle, he will understand the opening is not meant to be permanent at first. It is meant to return, each time deeper, each time clearer. And for the woman who walks beside such a man, patience is her wisdom. Not to force his growth, but to trust the rhythm within him. Love rooted in control is bondage, but love rooted in rhythm is liberation. In this way, both intuition and universal cycles become the quiet architects of destiny. One shows us when to move, the other teaches how to move. Together, they create the harmony between knowing and becoming. Remind us that everything that is meant for us is already on its way, but that we must be the ones to prepare the soil, to watch the stars, to walk in trust even when the path disappears beneath our feet. The sage does not rush, the master does not panic, and the soul, when ready, always remembers the way home. As you listen to the winds of intuition and feel the tides of life pulling and releasing, trust this: you are not behind. You are not lost. You are simply arriving, and in that arrival, the quiet addiction to truth, to connection, and to the sacred begins. Not all arrivals are announced. Not all blessings come wrapped in joy. Often, before the soul is granted the treasure it seeks, life gives it a test, subtle, sacred, and seemingly unjust. This is the law of preparation before revelation. A seed does not bloom the day it is buried. It must sit in darkness. It must endure the wet, the weight, the unseen world pressing around it. Only then, when it is softened and broken, does it find the strength to grow upward. So too is it with the human spirit. Before truth reveals itself, before love is deepened or fate fulfilled, there must be a hollowing, there must be a hollow of all that is not yet ready to hold the sacred. A novice once came to his master and said, "I am ready to receive the higher teaching." The master poured tea into the student's cup until it overflowed. "Master," cried the novice, "it is full. No more can enter." The master said, "Exactly, and so is your mind. Empty it first, or the truth I give you will only spill away." Life does this very thing when it prepares us. It spills what we thought we needed, empties us of certainty, and washes away our illusions, not to punish, but to prepare the space where deeper wisdom can reside. This preparation often comes through discomfort, through waiting, through silence, through the closing of doors we believed would remain open. It is easy to curse these moments, but the wise understand what is withheld is often a sign that the soul is not yet aligned with what it asks for. In the rhythms of each month, pockets of pause. From the 17th to the 21st, energies contract. Where before there was movement and signs, there may now be stillness. This stillness is not the absence of activity, but the presence of calibration. Think of an archer drawing back the bow. In that backward motion, all energy seems to recede. But it is this tension, this gathering of strength, that allows the arrow to fly with purpose. A man may feel in these days that he is losing ground, that what once flowed easily is now met with resistance. But rather than push harder, this is the time to listen. The soul is preparing, the divine is aligning, the archer is drawing back. In daily life, this is mirrored in the moments where a person steps away from noise. The woman who stops chasing validation and instead begins to learn the art of self-respect. The man who takes a pause from pursuit and in that pause meets the part of himself he had long neglected. Nature, too, is a master of preparation. Before dawn, there is the longest stretch of night. For the butterfly emerges, it dissolves within the cocoon, its former self completely undone. There is no rushing in nature. Everything is accomplished. An ancient Zen phrase teaches, the tighter you grasp, the less you hold. This is the essence of divine preparation. We are taught to let go before we are given, to be softened before we are strengthened, to become empty so we may be filled, not with illusions, but with truth. Now comes the deeper mystery. Why do so many miss their blessings? Not because they weren't given, but because they were unprepared to recognize them. A man meets a woman of rare soul, but still wears the lens of the past. He cannot see her for who she is. A woman arrives at the doorway of opportunity, but fear speaks louder than courage. These are not failures. These are echoes of unreadiness. There is beauty even here, for life is patient. The lesson returns, the chance reappears, but only when we are aligned within ourselves and with the divine flow, which brings us to the final truth, the hidden teachings of pain and stillness. It is tempting to believe that growth happens only in movement, in the climb, the goal, the revelation. But in truth, transformation often begins in the stillness after something ends. There is a story told of a monk who lost everything. His temple burned, his robes were taken, his companions scattered. He sat by the river for many days, without speech, without food. A traveler passing by asked, "What are you doing, old man?" The monk replied, "Listening to what remains. Pain clears the noise. It removes what is false. Stillness is what remains when nothing else will stay." Together, they become the teachers no tempo can offer. A man who has never been broken will speak of love with ease. But a man who has wept and returned will speak of love with reverence. The difference is not in experience, it is in depth. Stillness is the field where truth grows, but only those willing to sit in the discomfort of silence ever hear it bloom. In real life, this is seen in moments where distraction is no longer enough. The man who finds no joy in the pleasures that once entertained him. The woman who, after a painful betrayal, does not harden, but instead begins to walk every morning, barefoot on the earth, asking questions she never dared speak aloud. This is not regression. It is awakening. There is a powerful teaching from the old Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi. The sound of water says what I think. This phrase reminds us that nature reflects our truth if we will only slow enough to see. The river flows around the stone. The moon does not hurry to wax or wane. The bamboo bends with the wind but does not break. All things that survive and thrive do so not through force but through alignment with the deeper order. And so, emotional vulnerability, Divine intuition, cycles of the soul, and the hidden wisdom of pain all form a single path, a spiral, a rhythm, a return. It is not enough to open once. We must open often. It is not enough to see once. We must learn to see in all seasons. The man who becomes truly magnetic, addictive, not in body, but in presence, is the one who has walked through all phases, who has listened in the silence, bowed in the storm, and stood not as a warrior, but as a witness of truth. He no longer needs to prove. He no longer needs to possess. He no longer fears loss, because he has met himself beyond it. This is the final gift, to see pain not as punishment, but as purification. To recognize stillness not as absence, but as the space in which clarity is born. And when he meets her, the one whose presence matches the depth he has carved within himself, he will not resist. He will not flee. He will not fumble with words or hide behind false strength. He will recognize. And in that recognition, he will remember the divine is not far. It moves in patterns, whispers through winds, hides in heartbreak, and rises in stillness. Prepare yourself not with fear, but with reverence. For the moment is coming. The door will open, and only those who have emptied themselves will be ready to receive. By the 28th, all who have listened, truly listened, will know emotional vulnerability is not something a man gives to the world. It is something he gives to the right woman at the right time, when the signs, the silence, and the storms all whisper, now. So prepare your spirit. Watch for the dates. Feel the wind. And if the moment comes, when he finally shows his heart not in words, but in silence, not in promises, but in presence, know this: you are standing in a sacred window, and the universe is watching.